This week in our devotionals together, we've been looking at 5 truths that God tells us about friendship. The first was that friends are a necessity, not a luxury. Second, that we need to be there for our friends in the good times, but also the bad times. Third, that we need to be the kind of friend that accepts people as they are, in all their messiness and brokenness. Fourth, that we should value friends who love us and care about us enough to say hard things to us, to really challenge us. And then today, we'll see that God wants us to have the kind of friends who encourage us, but that we also need to be an encouragement to other people. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11, it says this: "Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up." John Ortberg tells the story of James Stockdale. And before Stockdale was an admiral in the United States Navy, he was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. You see, on September 9th, 1965, Stockdale's plane was shot down. He ejected, but when he landed, he was immediately picked up by the North Vietnamese, beaten and imprisoned. And he spent 7 years in that prison camp. His captors wanted to use Stockdale as propaganda against the United States. So he knew one day that they were going to parade him out in public. So he took a razor blade and slit his scalp so that they wouldn't put him out in public. They put a hat on his head. So he took a stool and beat his own face until it was black and bloodied and bruised and bleeding. You see, he just said, "You're not going to use me against my country." He heard that some of the soldiers were being killed under torture. And so he slit his own wrist and said, "I would rather die than submit to you." One day his captors put him out in shackles in the sun and then left him there for 3 straight days in the blistering heat. When it got really, really tough, there was a time when Stockdale said he was just getting ready to give up. His resolve to live had come to the end. He'd lost it. And he heard one of the other prisoners in a nearby cell block use Morse code to communicate to him. GBUJS. GBUJS, God bless you, James Stockdale. And he said that knowing another prisoner knew what he was going through and cared about him and wanted the best for him and was praying for him kept him going. See, that's what all the prisoners in the Vietnam prison camps would do for each other, is they would use code in order to communicate. In the most difficult circumstances, they were insistent upon doing something to stay in relationship with each other and to encourage one another. So when they walked by a cell, they would drag their sandals and speak out the code. They would use blankets and snap them out in order to speak out the code to one another. They would blow their nose or burp or do anything they could in order to stay in connection with other people. You see, where it was the most difficult, people would go to great lengths to stay in relationship. And yet here, where in our life, where it's much, much easier, I'm just not sure it's the priority that it should be. Friendships, community, real relationships just don't get the time and attention they probably should in our life. But here's what I want you to see. I want you to see that we need encouragement from people. Encouragement in our work and our family, encouragement to spouses, to kids, encouragement in our small groups. We just need other people to see what we're doing and to believe the best about us and encourage us. We don't only need that, but we need to be that kind of friend to other people. Is there someone you appreciate right now? Is there someone that you're thankful for? Is there something about them that you or really respect? Maybe it's the way they read their Bible. Maybe it's that they're a medical professional and you really respect the courage they're showing. Maybe it's the way they serve other people. Maybe it's the way they serve at church. Maybe it's their generosity, their kindness. It doesn't matter. Maybe you could take a second and write down 2 or 3 people that you want to encourage today. Then reach out to them. Text, FaceTime. Somehow reach out to them and tell them how much you respect them. Tell them that you really care about them and encourage them to keep going on. Maybe they're like James Stockdale and you don't know it, but they're at a point where they're just discouraged. They're not sure they can keep going. And a word from you would really help. God tells us that we need other people in our lives because we need encouragement and we need to be encouragers. Thanks for being with me this week.